Hello everyone and welcome to the Cancer Cup CM15 guide. The Cancer Cup takes place on the Hanshin race course. It is a right-handed course and is 2,200 meters, so it is a non-standard distance course. This will also have wet conditions and summer runner as well as cloudy days. Wet conditions means that the Narita Top Road speed card that gives firm course menace will no longer be quite as crucial of a pick. This is what the race course looks like. You can see here that the late race starts on corner 3, which means that any accelerations that talk about late race corners will usually hit perfectly. Skills that talk about a late race straight or a final straight won't take place until here. So this is your straightaway spurt, this is your Emperor's Divine Might. So as you might imagine, this is very bad for an acceleration skill such as straightaway spurt, but it is good for a velocity skill that will hit in the final stretch. Corner 4 skills such as Speed Star are going to be a little bit tricky on whether or not they will be kind of eaten by this acceleration phase. So it is a little bit more of a gamble to use those final corner velocity skills than it might have been in previous CMs. That doesn't mean that they're bad, it just means that it is possible that they will hit at a pretty bad time. As you might have already guessed, all of the old reliables are good in this CM. So angling and scheming must be first, let's pump some iron must be 6th, and moving past and beyond must be 5th or 6th, and of course not be rushed. So these are all accelerations that will work perfectly, but you do have to be in these specific positions for those accelerations to hit. Here are some other acceleration options in this CM. Keep in mind that these are all going to be random or gambly to a certain extent. Any position can run Radiant Star, which is the Track Blazer Gold skill. Do not take Radiant Star on Christmas Oguri or Summer Maru, as it will screw up their carryover proc timings, which I will go into here in a little bit. Any non-front can run No Stopping Me. Pace Chasers pretty much have their neck and neck options from the Daiwa Scarlet Power card, or you can just try to get head-on during the career. Additionally, Straight Descent and Determined Descent do have a little bit of viability on this track. As you can see here, there are 2 downhills, one of which is very long and does actually cover the final spurt. So the descent skills do have the potential to be legitimate accelerations, but it is, again, very gambly. For late surgers, we do have On Your Left, which is that 6th or below acceleration that it hits at a random point in the late race. For late or end closers, we do have From the Brink, which is a 5th or below skill. However, From the Brink is a little bit shorter in duration, so it's not going to be as good as On Your Left, but it is still an option. Again, though, both of these are going to be pretty gambly, and I generally wouldn't recommend them if you feel like you might have better options. So the main thing about this track is that 2,200 minus 777 equals carryover. So 777 skill is pretty much best in slot for both Summer Maruzensky and Christmas Oguri as a trigger skill for their uniques, which will give them perfect carryover into the final spurt. So because of this, both of these Umas are very much worth talking about for this CM. Firstly, let's talk about Christmas Oguri. So generally, the ideal way to build Christmas Oguri is to have 2 heals that will hit in the early or mid race, and then 2 heals that can both function as a quote-unquote trigger heal that will trigger Festive Miracle at the perfect time. Now, CM12, if you guys remember, the last Christmas Oguri dominant CM had this perfectly with Uma Squared. CM15 does not actually have a secondary recovery option for the trigger recovery on Festive Miracle. This means that she has to hit 777s as her 3rd heal, or she is going to lose lengths. Uma Squared now hits too early, as it hits in the very beginning of corner 3, which means she won't get as effective of carryover from it. So I've seen some folks thinking that After School Stroll could be a possible 4th recovery for Christmas Oguri because this downhill here will hit it with perfect carryover. However, this first downhill here is where After School Scroll is going to proc, even though it has that accumulate time of 5 seconds, meaning that it will not proc in the first 5 seconds of the race. However, I have not been able to escape this downhill in the first 5 seconds of the race in my testing, and so far I have always managed to hit After School Stroll on this downhill and not this one, which means that I don't think that it's going to be viable for players to run After School Stroll as a backup recovery on Christmas Oguri. Now, it does still function as a initial early race recovery on an end closer Oguri, but don't take it thinking that it can be your miracle 4th recovery. So now let's talk about Shake It Out. So Shake It Out is a late race recovery that will proc if you activate 3 other skills during the late race. So this means if we are using Shake It Out as a backup trigger for Festive Miracle itself will be delayed until the late race if we whiff another recovery. So this does reduce the efficiency of Festive Miracle, and additionally, I don't know that Shake It Out is really that great of a backup option in general, because we can't force a lot of skills to hit early enough in the late race to make it consistent as a backup, and we kind of want our backup to be consistent. So really the only skills that we can use to intentionally force Shake It Out to proc as soon as possible are Let's Pump Some Iron and Moving Past and Beyond. Crucially, this means that you have to be in 6th place to proc 2 out of the 3 skills that you need for Shake It Out. The 3rd skill is going to have to be getting lucky on maybe Nimble Nav or something else. It's possible that we can, gamble on corner skill procs at that time, but ultimately, I personally think that the delta between whiffing a recovery and therefore needing Shake It Out and hitting everything to hit Shake It Out in enough time to still win the race is not large. It doesn't really feel like it's going to save a significant enough number of races to really feel worth it to me, but I think that it's possible that it can save, maybe 2 or 3 races, just depending on when you hit it and how early you hit it. So all of this combos together to mean that, in my opinion, Christmas Oguri is going to be less consistent in CM15 as she was in CM12. With a well-built Christmas Oguri, she will have about a 25% chance to not proc Festive Miracle on 777s because she will have whiffed one of her 3 recoveries. This means that she will either have to rely on a backup such as Shake It Out, or she just doesn't get the acceleration, which means that she has a more likely shot to lose. I do think that this is why we might see more late or end Christmas Oguris, because they will still have access to Moving Past Beyond and Pump Some Iron slots. So they might still be able to have a backup acceleration even if they can't hit Festive Miracle. I do still think that Christmas Oguri will be the best Uma on the track when she hits. It just means that her win rate might be a little bit less. The other elephant in the room is the Throne's Assemblage Gacha SSR PAL card, which will release on round 1, day 2 of CM15. I've already made another video about this card, but essentially Throne will dramatically raise the ceiling on Trackblazer Umas, giving it much more SP and stats than any other card in the game. Trainers who remake their ace with Throne after the CM starts will almost certainly see a higher win rate. This means that we are essentially incentivized to run low variance Umas who can be more easily remade to hit a common floor than running more high variance Umas that we might have to put a lot more runs into. You don't have to remake with this card, you're not contractually obligated to remake with this card, but the difference between using Throne and not using Throne is going to be pretty drastic just due to the amount of SP that Throne can give you. So yeah, all of these factors put together makes the CM really live up to its name. So here's a couple quick tips for CM15 before we get into position-based discussions. Firstly, everybody will probably want to try to inherit Bark Roll of Blessings, which is a universal late race velocity skill. You should use this skill on everybody who can afford the parent slot to New Year TM Opera O, and if not, you would want to use New Year TM Opera O as a grandparent and try to inherit it regardless. Bark Roll of Blessings is going to be a pretty strong late race velocity skill, which will always hit at a good time, and you will always get the maximum value from it as you are trying to close them on the finish line. If you do plan on remaking your aces for the Throne card, you can run your CM12 aces on round 1, day 1. However, only right-handed is the same green between 12 and 15, so if you're running a front who relies on triggers such as sunny days or firm conditions for groundwork, you might have a little bit more difficulty winning those. An Uma squared Christmas Oguri is not ideal, but she could still probably get enough wins just to scrape through round 1 if you do plan on remaking. And of course, due to Throne's release timing, a double Dominator team would be optimal just for sanity reasons, since you would only have to rebuild your main ace with Throne. If you can pre-prepare 2 debuffers that you will not have to rebuild, it will make your life a little bit easier when you are trying to rebuild your main ace with Throne during round 1 of the CM. Now let's get into position-based stuff. For fronts, you might want to be careful if you do decide to run a runaway, because runaways will indirectly buff pace Christmas Oguri and result in them being able to close on your front a little bit more effectively. As a front, you will of course always just take the front package with angling and scheming, groundwork, and taking the lead. You also want to stack mid-race, such as using the El Condor Pasa card for killer tunes, as well as just getting as many of the following skills as possible, getting your corners, your straights, your slipstream, playtime's over, ramp up, leader's pride, etc, etc. All of those are good, and you definitely want to get as many of them as possible to put a big gap between yourself and the Christmas Oguri probably chasing it on your heels. I do want to talk about Summer Maru in particular because I think she's a very interesting Uma in this CM. Because 777s can give Kiss for Courage carryover into the late race, Summer Maru has very strong late race potential. She can sacrifice some of her mid-race by intentionally not triggering Kiss for Courage until the 777's proc in order to give her better late race. However, this is only applicable if she can secure first place without Kiss for Courage, because she still has to hit angling and scheming in order to have a primary win con. So this means that if you do decide to give Summer Maru 777s and use Kiss for Courage as a carryover skill, you will be competing against other fronts, namely against Valentine Bourbon, for that first place slot, and you will not have your most powerful tool to do it. So it will be very difficult, I think, for Summer Maru to actually be able to beat Valentine Bourbon if she is using this strategy, because Valentine Bourbon gets escape artists in her kit, and she also uses Operation Cacao. When you're using this strategy on Summer Maru, you can't even inherit Operation Cacao because it does come with a mild heal that will trigger Kiss for Courage too early. As an alternative, you can actually use Festive Miracle on your Summer Maru if you think that you are going to lose mid-race without Kiss for Courage. This means that you use another recovery to proc Kiss for Courage and get first place in the mid-race, from which you can hit both Angling and Scheming and Festive Miracle from first place. For this, I would recommend you do take Operation Cacao as an inherit, and then use either Corner Recovery or Moxie, as well as 777s, in order to proc Festive Miracle and Angling and Scheming at the same time. For pace chasers, if you are not Christmas Oguri, I hope you like gambling. Specific pace chasers with overtake acceleration uniques can work, like Special Week or Daiwa Scarlet or Meisho Doto, but even then, I think changing your running style to either be a front in Daiwa Scarlet's case or a backliner in the case of most other pace chasers is probably better for more reliable acceleration access. It's pretty dire for pace chasers right now. There's not a lot more to say on them, except for the fact that Determined Descent is a very funny option if you wanted to grab it and gamble on it. As a small note, Determined Descent is only a 0.3 acceleration, while Straight Descent is a 0.2, so the upgrade to Determined Descent is not as strong as the upgrade to most other gold acceleration skills. Because of course it's not. That would mean giving pace chasers something fun to work with. Now, once again, lates are split into two groups. The Dominator group, which includes these 5 Umas I have listed here, and the Acceleration group, of which there are 2 Umas that have innate 0.4 accelerations. If you are not running Mejiro Ryan or Mejiro Dober as your ace, you will be running both of their uniques on your late Surger, which does mean that you will need to put New Year Opera O in a Grandparent slot to try to get that Bark Roll of Blessings late race velocity skill. Unfortunately, most lobbies will be a toss-up between fronts and Christmas Oguri plus backliners, which means that it's difficult to predict what team comp will reliably land your late Surger in 6th place. Now, you can take on your left or from the brink or both on your ace if you want to. These are gamble skills, and I do think that SP will be better spent on getting more reliable mid-race to try to push up as much as possible, but these skills could save you if maybe there's too many fronts and you're stuck in 7th place. They might be able to catapult you forward a little bit, but I would not rely on them. End closers will be able to use the Mr. CB Wit card to get that crucial Daring Strike skill, which will help end closers more easily push past lates in order to steal their acceleration slots. As a huge reminder, please do not take Straightaway Spur or Encroaching Shadow. Don't try to pick it up for any reason. It does not work on this track. It is very bad. As an end closer, you are functionally a late Surger with a stronger mid-race and better late race coefficients. You are still going to take most of the late Surger acceleration package. You're just going to use some end closer skills to try to close the gap a little bit better. For the too long didn't watch of this video, unfortunately CM15 will likely be another fronts versus Christmas Oguri CM. This is complicated further by the fact fact that competitive players will optimally remake their aces after round 1 day 1 due to the Throne's Assemblage SSR card release. I do believe that Christmas Oguri will be less consistent in CM15 than she was in CM12, but she can still be run in other positions for backup accelerations. For fronts, your goal is to try to outrun Christmas Oguri. For pace, you want to either beat Christmas Oguri or just gamble. For lates, you want to just gamble on the lobby composition, and for ends, you just want to be lates with stronger mid-race. Honestly, if I'm being 100% genuine and nil right now, my recommendation is to phone in CM15, especially if CM12 frustrated you, especially if you don't want to remake your ace. I have seen a lot of burnout in the community lately, and I don't want this CM to amplify it so much that we're seeing more and more people drop out. So if you are feeling like this is just not going to be fun for you, then I really highly encourage you to just phone it in. Again, you can use your CM12 aces, you can use those double dom comps to only really build one ace, but overall, I think that players should try to think about a path forward that will frustrate them the least and follow that path. So yes, that is my Cancer Cup CM15 guide. I hope that this was helpful. If I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. I am more than happy to always make adjustments to my videos or future content as needed. Thank you so much for all of the support, and I hope that you guys have a stress-free time doing all of your runs for this CM. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.